Have you ever looked at something and sensed that something wasn't quite right? Like now, for instance. I look like my grandmother, but I sound like a guy. Well, when you look at a public school these days, it's kind of like looking at me today. It may look like a school, but something's not quite right. This little video is going to explain to you just what it is that isn't quite right. And by the end of this talk, it'll be as clear to you what's wrong with these schools as what's wrong with the me that may look like a little old lady, but sounds like something else altogether. You got that? Whatever. Here, let's go. First, a little background on education in America to begin with will help develop this topic. Way back in Thomas Jefferson's time, in the late 1700s, folks were trying to figure out how to shape a country out of people who knew feudalism as the most familiar form of living. Dead set on running with a notion that everybody was equal, they didn't want the powerful running roughshod over the weak. Jefferson wanted a government too weak to aid the wolves, yet strong enough to protect the sheep. To that end, he wanted everybody to receive a fine education, an education that would enable all citizens to contribute to a stable democracy, with leadership that would rise up from the common folk. Jefferson dreamed not of an aristocracy, but of a meritocracy. An equal education to all would separate the wheat from the chaff, and folks would elect the really good and wise from among them to lead this great nation. At the same time that Jefferson was envisioning an equal education for all, he was also envisioning an agrarian future for all. Everybody with a farm, manure on their boots, and fields of corn, and whatnot. Well, he got the future of an agrarian everybody wrong, and those ideas about equal education and meritocracy and so on got those wrong too. The wolves got busy and strong, and they sent their kids to private schools. The sheep were herded onto plantations and into cities, and if their kids received an education, it was to train them for their work lives primarily. And then around 1840 came Horace Mann, who established a system of public education, not for the purpose of providing citizens with the mental tools to contribute to a stable democracy, but to provide workers, productive workers, docile workers, easily managed and not prone to resort to strikes or violence. Man sought social harmony as the purpose of schools, and so the King James Version Bible became a part of the curriculum. Schools provided the common elements of great Christian Protestant truths that built children into hard workers in the developing industrial world. Interestingly, those without Protestant roots objected, hence the growth of Roman Catholic parochial schools. So the nation grew into an industrial power. The public schools provided productive, docile workers. The wealthy had their schools, the Catholics theirs. Education propelled forth. But there was a blip. Not a big blip, mind you, but a Jeffersonian blip. In the late 1800s, a fellow named John Dewey came along and tried to gum things up by observing that industrial society was undemocratic, that schools used authoritarian methods to provide workers who could be easily controlled. This Dewey fella envisioned schools as a laboratory for democracy, and he foresaw a new day for education where schools would stimulate the intellectual capacities of children. Industrial leaders didn't like Dewey at all. Instead, they found their hero in Harvard's President Charles Eliot, who propelled education forward from the pulpit of social efficiency. His objectives through a scientifically regulated method of schooling were 1. Social stability, 2. Employable skills, 3. Equal educational opportunity, and 4. Meritocracy. By the way, Equal educational opportunity didn't mean everybody would receive the same quality of education, but would receive a different sort of education for different students, an appropriate education. And meritocracy meant sorting kids out, most for the factory and a few for leadership positions in society. Eliot laid the course for our modern public schools. Students learn discipline, respond to the ringing of bells, obey commands, are patriots to their country and to their school motto. They are tracked into basic, honors, high honors courses of study to become laborers or professionals. They may study a vocational subject, or they may debate vigorously, and they can climb the ladder toward achievement and excellence. But most of all, they are prepared for work. And that brings us to the Walmart clerk. Walmart employs 1% of those who have a job in America. What that means is that the number one job that Americans will be trained for in our public schools is that of the Walmart clerk. Yes, many will become McDonald's employees, many will work for Pizza Hut, some will become office workers, fewer still will be doctors or lawyers or politicians, but Walmart will employ the greatest number of graduates of our public schools than any other employer. Walmart doesn't need workers who have knowledge of Latin or Greek or of classical literature originally written in those languages. But Walmart does need people who drop everything when a bell rings and move on to the next task assigned to them. Walmart needs workers who are able to fill out bubbles on a form. Walmart does not need people who can think critically about issues that contribute to a functioning democracy, but it does need people who are docile and not likely to strike or resort to violence. So there you have it. Public schools offer a pasture for the sheep to graze as they are prepared for being fed to the wolves of industry. But it gets better than that. Public schools in and of themselves have become money makers for industry. Standardized testing is a fantastically profitable scheme, and each year that goes by, more tests are required and more money from public schools is consumed by the great testing industry. IQ tests, state assessment tests, end-of-course tests, exit exam tests, comprehensive assessment tests, SAT, ACT, tests, tests, tests. Fill-in bubble tests have become the standard, but soon all tests must be online tests. Think of the market for computers, for tablets, for infrastructure, all of which must be updated every few years. The expense of it all. The glory of it all. But it doesn't stop here. What if industry could actually own the schools? If investors could directly profit from providing a product, that product being the public schools themselves? What if American investors, Chinese investors around the world, speculative investors, could provide the education for America's youth in charter schools, with profits guaranteed by the United States government? Then you've really got something going. Soon the wolves from around the globe will be tending the American sheep in charter schools. But who are these wolves? Where did they come from? Are they right in front of us but disguised from view? Are our teachers the wolves? Teachers are certainly blamed for our poor schools. Are parents the wolves? Parents are certainly blamed for not providing proper nutrition and healthful home lives. Teachers' unions, PTAs, school administrators, maybe teacher colleges. Do the wolves dwell among them, with their hungry stomachs growling as they roam among the sheep? No. The wolves are not hidden. There is no cloak and dagger, no stuff of conspiracy here. The wolves are simply feeding their families, just as everybody wants to do. The wolves are simply marshaling their resources for the reforms that will help them provide for the schooling of 99% of America's children someday. They are investing in the future of America's schools, for-profit schools, charter schools. And where did the wolves come from? How did they learn to climb to the top of the food chain? Where were they nurtured in their wolfishness? Are they the cream of the crop of the public school meritocracy? Some, yes, but there is a training ground for the fiercest competitors in our society, and that training ground is a world apart from the threshing floor of public schools. The advantage of a private school education is described by a St. Paul's graduate in a nutshell. St. Paul's is one of the top prep schools in the nation. He says, small classes and individualized attention gives prep school kids a unique self-confidence and ease in their exchanges with authority figures. They have the ability to treat hierarchies as ladders, not as ceilings. Prep school kids do not just have better resources for education, they have a fundamentally different experience. They are trained to look authority square in the eyes and move ahead, climb the ladder, and become the authority. Armed with this education experience, they become the wolves, tending the sheep through the charter school movement. Some of the main public school reformers are Michelle Rhee of Maumee Valley Country Day, who is the #1 celebrity of the school reform movement. Mitt Romney of Cranbrook School, who has advocated for charter schools, merit pay, and standardized testing. Bill Gates of Lakeside School, who has piled billions into public schools which are then required to carry out his reform ideas. Arne Duncan of the University of Chicago Laboratory School, who is the Secretary of Education and created the Race to the Top program. Jeb Bush of Phillips Andover, who founded the Excellence for Education Foundation that issued report cards for every school in Florida. And perhaps the least known but most enlightening of this group is Chester Finn of Phillips Exeter, who recommends reforming the public school system in this manner. Blow it up and start over. President of the conservative Fordham Institute and senior fellow of the Hoover Institution, he supports the privatization of public education, the use of vouchers, and development of a national core curriculum. That's national core curriculum. In other words, all public schools teaching the same core courses everywhere. Can Stacking 101, Following Orders, the advanced course, Shopping Cart Logistics. So there you have it. Welcome to a brave new world where your child will receive an education only Walmart would be proud of. Oh, poor Thomas Jefferson. He dreamed of an educated citizenry, a citizenry that could recognize tyranny and have the wherewithal to revolt against it. Instead, we have an aristocracy of the wealthy, as Jefferson dreaded, and we have citizens who have been trained from their youth to jump at the sound of a bell, to stare at TV screens, computer screens, notebook and tablet and smartphone screens for hours on end, trained to memorize pledges and defend them with heart and soul. Perhaps we're living in the new feudalism, of the sort, though modernized, that our forebears were so eager to escape. Can we escape this new feudalism? Can we regain a participatory democracy with a government too weak to aid the wolves, yet strong enough to protect the sheep? If we can but recognize that the wolves are now tending the sheep, we have a chance. If we can recognize that the wolves are marshaling their resources to take over the public schools in the name of reform, privatizing them for their profit, then we can, perhaps, stop them in their tracks. And then maybe, just maybe, we can build an educational system that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. A people who gain the wisdom to elect the really good and wise to lead our country. Now I wonder, have you become comfortable with me in this old lady's outfit and the voice of a guy? If you have, snap out of it. You become mesmerized by me as you have by the reformers who are making public schools into financial investments and into Walmart training academies. Snap out of it, get to work, and let's start educating for democracy. God bless.